Hi there. It is Monday, September 9th, and this morning was my service appointment at the Tesla Service Center for the Model 3 Performance. Um, my 2024, I thought it had a rear drive unit leak, and this is the video that I made of it before, showing that I thought mine was leaking like so many others that people have found. So I took it to the service center, and even though I've had a 2021 before this, 2024, this is the first time I've ever been to a service center for actual service, and I was really impressed. I went to the University Town Center location in Sarasota. It's a new service center, just opened a couple months ago, and really nice. They're really organized. I pulled right up to the service door. They let me in. They got to my appointment right on time, and I showed them. I had printed out the pictures, some screen grabs from this video that I did before, showing where I thought there was oil leaking. And they said, okay, we're going to take it back and we're going to have the shop foreman take a look and see what's up, and then we'll let you know where to go from there. So I waited in the waiting room, which is really nice, got myself a coffee, sat down and waited, and it was probably about 30 to 40 minutes. They came in and got me and said, come on back, we want to show you something. And it turns out, I'm convinced mine is not leaking. Now, even though I found oil on the outside of the case, or what appeared to be oil, what they showed me was that it is assembly lube that they use to put these shafts in. They use some heavy-duty lube to get the shafts in there so that they're lubricated as they go into the seals and everything. And he said there's some left over, and what happens is it ends up slinging off of this shaft here, and as the rear drive unit gets warm, the thicker type grease, actually the viscosity gets a little bit thinner, and it starts running down the case, and it can actually get to the bottom and even drip on the splash guard, the plastic splash shield. And I guess I was just lucky today because there was a field tech there that has worked on these before, and he was aware of this. And he basically just said, yeah, these things basically sweat, these rear drive units, because the assembly lube gets on them. And like I said, the viscosity changes. And to complicate things, the AC condensate, the liquid from the AC, even though it normally drips down just behind the front wheels toward the front of the car, while you're driving, it gets into the channel along the battery tray, and it makes its way all the way to the back. And so the condensation from the AC, the water makes it inside that splash panel as well. So what's happening is some of that thicker grease that can end up looking like oil when it thins out drips down into the splash guard, and then it mixes with AC water and everything, and then you get an oily looking water that's coming out below your trunk, and everybody freaks out. And I was already starting to suspect this. In fact, I even made posts several days ago before my appointment saying, you know what, I don't know that this is a leak. With that water from the AC splashing around in there, and this, what I found that looked like grease rather than oil, I think it might be assembly grease that's just thinning out and getting on the case. Now, in this video, this old video, let me turn this down. In this old video here, the one that I initially did, I was saying here, look, I think I found oil, and I got some on my finger there. And later on, if you look at the case, there's an oily residue here, but I think that's from the grease that starts out where the shaft is basically, and then just spreads from there. And let me go to the point in the video where I show there was a little drop right here, and watch my finger. This made me frown when I did it. I was expecting oil, and I'm like, wait a minute, that looks like grease. That's too thick to be oil. So what's happening is the grease is thinning out, and with the heat of the drive unit, the heat of the day, underneath the car, it's basically changing the viscosity of the grease enough, and the grease mixed with water, driving in the rain, mixed with also the AC condensation, it's dripping down and getting the bottom of the case wet, and some of it will drip into the splash guard. Now, I think the videos that I've seen where people are showing streaks all along the bottom of their splash guard, I think that is either rainwater. If you've been driving in the rain, it could be that, or even if you never drive the car in the rain, which I don't drive this in the rain because it's kind of a garage queen, my car. And I don't even recall ever driving it in the rain yet. Yet I was getting streaks of water, confirmed to be water, coming out of that splash panel right below this drive unit right here. And I put my finger up there, and sure enough, it was just water. It was dirty water and kind of a oily film on the water, but it was water. So be careful thinking that just because you see streaks back there, your drive unit's leaking. I bet most of these drive units are not leaking. And that field tech, you know, he's the top dog, and he was there and looked at it. They even took the front panel off to show me the front drive unit. And sure enough, even the front drive unit had this oily like film on it. I stuck my finger up there and it had an oily film on it. He said that too is the assembly grease. He said there's not as much on the front drive unit for whatever reason than there is on the back, but I confirmed that, yeah, there was like an oily residue on the front drive unit as well. And you could tell if you look that it's coming down from this area where they would insert this axle into past the seal here. They need some lubricant when they're doing that. And I always thought it was weird how we never really saw any oil like running down here or collecting on top of this plate here, like there was oil coming out of this seal. And I thought that's kind of odd. And I also thought it was odd that that drop that I stuck my finger in, how it looked like grease and not oil. And this stuff just gets in, the grease will sling around in there and it will cause this oily film. And like I said, mixed with rainwater and other stuff that splashes up in there, and even the AC condensation splashing up in there, it kind of gets a film on there. And the field tech called it sweat. He says these things basically kind of have a sweat on them, and it's totally normal. And I believe them. I don't think they were just, you know, saying, oh, within spec, or that's normal, and trying to pull it off, because I watched them remove these panels. And when they removed the rear panel, it's been 1 month now since I did this original video and several hundred miles. And I didn't see another drop extra from when they removed the panel. I was surprised because it actually looked cleaner and it looked like it had less oil on it now than it did when I did this video a month ago. And I'm thinking, well, it obviously hasn't leaked any more. And even the people, I think the couple people that have gotten these seals replaced, their service center decided to replace these seals. I think the part of the procedure when they replace the seals, when they get the shaft back in, is they put that packing or assembly grease on it again, and then they push it in there, clean everything up, and then some of that grease gets out of the seal or out of this area, and the process starts over. So it looks like it's leaking again, when in fact it's the same thing. So I'm kind of betting right now that most of these, if not all of them, are not leaking. And if you think it's leaking and it looks like you've got a lot of streaks, which means there's a lot of oil coming out of that bottom splash plate, I bet most of it is water. And it might be water mixed with a greasy film. Now, one last thing, as soon as they took the panel off, this splash panel that goes beneath this drive unit, I looked right in the middle of it, and there's about a quarter size, maybe a little bit bigger than a quarter, right in the center. And I stuck my finger in it, and it's clearly grease. I mean, it felt like petroleum jelly, like Vaseline. It was that thick. And I'm like, well, that's clearly not oil. That is grease. So it lined up right with what the field tech was saying. That grease basically gets, you know, thin enough that it drips down or slings out or whatever down onto the splash panel, and then mixed with water, however you want, you know, to say water got in there, whether it's rainwater or AC, condensation, whatever, mixes with that, and that thins it out even more, and it drips out the bottom, and it makes it look like there's oil leaking. But I bet in most of these cases, these rear drive units are not leaking. And I thought it was important to put this video out to give people that information. Now, I could be wrong. The field tech could be wrong. The other three guys including the foreman who were there. I mean, the field tech was there, and there were 3 other people. There were 4 people showing me, walking back and forth, going, yeah, we've seen that before. That's normal. This is grease. This is what happens with the grease from assembly. So maybe we're all wrong. And of course, obviously, one-up problems, there could be some of these that are leaking. But I'm just saying, don't look at your splash panel on the bottom, see streaks, and think, I got a rear drive unit leak. You probably don't, because I didn't. And it's clear to me that it's not leaking, because I've driven it several hundred more miles, and it's another month now. And if it was leaking, you would expect more, let me go back, you would expect more oil to be hanging down and more drops and stuff like that. There wasn't a drop on it. Even this looked clean now. It basically looked like somebody wiped it down, but I know they didn't, because I watched them take the panel off, and nobody's touched it. So it's just the fact that over time that grease has, pretty much dissipated, or whatever was going to leak down and drip has already leaked down. Or I shouldn't say leaked, traveled, because I'm thinking when they put these shafts in, I'm sure when they put these shafts in, they probably lube it up with grease pretty well, and then they shove these shafts in there, and then that grease, when it gets hot and the other elements and everything, it starts dripping down. The case gets warm as you're driving it, and that kind of melts the grease a little bit and thins it out, and it runs down even further. I think that's what's happening. So I thought I should give that update. Hopefully I'm right. Hopefully the techs are right, and these really aren't leaking. But like I said, I guess my advice would be, keep an eye on it. And like the field tech told me, he said, if you don't see a puddle under it, you should be fine. If you see a puddle of oil on your garage floor, then maybe worry. But make sure it's not water first, because these things are dripping water from the back, whether it's from rain or the AC. So be aware of that. But if you see oil, obviously it's leaking. But beyond that, I really don't think everybody should be rushing to make service appointments or waiting for a recall, because I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think these things are leaking. Anyway, that's my 2 cents, plus extra words I probably didn't even need to say. I usually make these too long, so I'm going to quit while I'm ahead. So thanks for watching.